But the other one today, which I was going to talk about, was charter schools. Charter schools swamped with applications ahead of opening. Some charter schools say they're turning students away before they have even opened. 7 of the publicly funded, privately owned schools are scheduled to open their doors over the next 2 weeks. Tipene is a boarding school opening on the site of the former St. Stephen's School in Auckland's Bombay on Waitangi Day. One of its two Tumuaki Nathan Dury said it was the first Maori boarding school to open in 100 years, and it received 4 times as many applications as places for its first intake. We ended up with just over 120 applications, so we are reapproaching. So we reapproached the trust. Wait, just over 120. What? 120 applications. How big is this school?
What?
Do they mean
120
what?
For 30 people.
For 30 people? Wait, hang on. We ended up with just over 120 applications, so we reapproached the trust board to say they would shift the number from 30, where our initial figure was pitched at, to allow us to have 40, and we've landed on 42. How big is this? Is it literally just like a one-class boarding school?
Like, I mean, that's a great headline to have, right? My school of 5 people. We've had 5 times as many applicants as we can. Like, wow, that's
okay.
Weird.
Interesting.
Right.
All right. Interest in the school is not restricted to well-off families, despite a boarding fee of $20,000. There's 42 people. $20,000, which is offset by a $5,000 scholarship for each student. Wow, students pay $15,000. I think that what we've seen over the last decades
that
is
whole sentence boggles my mind. Oh, it's not restricted to well-off families.
Well-off families,
because
yeah.
there's a $5,000 offset, so you still got to come up with $15,000 for a year. So apparently it's not. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yes. Next sentence. I think we've seen over the last decades that there isn't a lack of appetite for boarding schools. Cost definitely plays a part in it, and so the trust board worked really hard to make this affordable. Affordable for $15,000. If you were to look at what it costs to raise young people, let alone give them access, opportunities, and sport and culture, and all of the other costs that come on top of feeding and clothing children, this is actually a cost-effective way of raising young people, so they say. The school's founders applied to set up a charter school rather than attempting to set up a special character or integrated school because that was the option that was available. Mastery School is a Christchurch outpost of an Australian group of schools. 60 primary age children were enrolled with the further 40 waitlisted. Principal said all were children who struggled in mainstream classrooms. A lot of our children have learning struggles and might have a diagnosis of dyslexia, dysgraphia, or dyscalculia. They might find learning hard. Those are the children that we're serving in our school. The school used a very specific teaching method, she said. We teach 85% repeated content every day, so it's very predictable. The children know exactly what to expect, and then each day we're introducing 15% new material, and we're testing them really regularly, so every 2 weeks they're getting a mastery test. Woohoo! It's amazing. The children come to love and look forward to those tests because they're achieving success at the level they're at. Love tests.
I'm really torn on this. I've always been torn on charter schools because of exactly what they're mentioning, right? I think there should be special character schools for Māori students that are set up for them. I think there should be teaching abilities for people that don't fit into mainstream schooling. Do I think this is it? No, I don't. And I think when you're talking about whole schools with a role that is the same level of people as you get in some classrooms in state schools, something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think when David
and how much did they give?
It's like 3 times the amount of per person funding from the state than you get per student in state schools. Like the argument is there. Yes, not everybody fits in the fucking square hole, right? But everybody in education talks about the same thing. We need more bodies. Like, we either need smaller classroom sizes or more assistants in schools. Like, if you've got one teacher and a part-time teacher's aide for a classroom the size of 35, 40, then someone like me as a kid who had some learning difficulties and struggling with ADD and that sort of thing, like having a teacher aid assistant would have got me through that. The only reason I got through that schooling is the time that I went through schooling, 25 was a big classroom. You know, and they're talking about spinning up an entirely different education system with very little state oversight for an enormous amount of state money. That is not the answer.
Yeah.
Get more teachers. Bring the
Mhm.
class, the teacher to student ratio, bring that down.
Yeah.
Increase funding to schools. Let them run programs like what they're talking about as entirely different schools. You know, maybe that charter school in Christchurch with a completely different learning style, that could be something that could be set up regionally by the Ministry of Education. Maybe there is an argument for having, you know, like a special character Māori school, boarding school even. But it's run by the state. You know, it's like, I think the only solid argument for charter schools is these edge cases. But I think when you look at them and go, okay, I can see the reason for this charter school, I think it opens the door for something that is more like, well, let's fucking privatize the entire educational network, which has happened
because
in
clearly,
places like the States. Like you look at, I think it's either Chicago or Philadelphia, maybe both of them. Their experiences with charter schools is frightening.
mm,
And that's held
yeah.
up as an example of the state getting out of education.
Mm-hmm. 153 million of the new funding for the publicly funded private schools over the next 4 years. So that's
And I mean, that's
153
the other
that
part
could
of it.
go
Look,
to schooling, but
I honestly don't know how much difference $153 million worth of extra funding for the Ministry of Education would it even touch the sides? I don't know. Is this the best place to spend the money? I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. Because I remember reading the story of like, okay, in a state school, and look, I'm not saying that this number is correct, it's representative, but the article that I said was like, oh, you know, state school gets like $12,000 worth of funding per student per year. David Seymour's charter school, you know, they're getting 40-50 grand per student per year state funding. And I'm just like, okay, well, that sounds to me like it's an argument to increase funding massively per student in state schools. But what do I know? Where will we find the money? The rich. The answer is always the rich. Like, if you want me to point at one person, I'll point at that guy that owns Zuru. It comes from him.
I think this is interesting because 153 million for 15 new charter schools, and the two examples they've given us have roll sizes of 1 or 2 classrooms. How much of the other, like, it seems really, like, I was expecting a school of children, not a classroom of children. And maybe that's just a thing of, hey, start small and get you, but that's a small sample size. And it's not actually fixing our issue, which there's not enough room for kids to go to school anyway in our public system.
The only one of any particular size that I know of is Vanguard, that military academy, who have been running regardless. I think they ran as a special character school because they were a charter school, and then they took charter schools away, but they were already in operation, so they went special character school, and now they're back to being a charter school again. But they've had an existing role; they're not spinning up from nothing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny 40, one. I'm
40 people. And I know there's small rural schools out there and that sort of thing that have like a roll size of 15 people. Spread out over a range of ages.
Temuka was 300 students and that was 7 to 13. 300 kids. And like that's a great example of a country school in a small town which runs really, really well because it's very tight-knit, community-based, and they're able to actually give the kids attention as opposed to they didn't have massive I think it was maybe like 20 students was their average classroom size. And like small rural towns have a lot of like constantly issues with, very close contact with rangatamariki and police and things like that. But it's a very tight community, so everyone kind of knows the gist. And there are some really tough problems in that school for teachers to deal with. But it's just a sense of community, and like it works really well. And that's a very small school, but it's certainly not 42
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, again, it was the 80s. It was different times. I was from the poorer side of Tiburon. My school was Makwa. I think it had a roll of about 300 people across, and it was very much a cookie cutter state school. Same buildings, same portable fucking classrooms that were always there. But yeah, like I remember there being a discussion about a big class being 25. And I think all of these charter schools are pointing to the same thing of like, we get excellent results because we have 15 people in a classroom. And it's like, cool. So that's how we get good results. And then if we have a challenging, if we have a kid that has some challenges and we have better understanding of those challenges now, then maybe we put our heads together and all the schools in the region, we sort of identify these problems and work together, and we solve them. It's not everyone is like that. That is my big concern. Is sometimes when you look at a great one size fits all state solution, people don't fit in the square hole. Are charter schools the solution to that? No, I don't think so.